Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I am so excited and happy to be back after about a month of being on pause because I was relocating my studio, packing everything up and moving to a new beautiful place that I did not have the opportunity to do new radio shows. So happy and grateful to be back. And for anyone who's new, I figured that I would begin with just a basic introduction and reiterate a lot of things that I have said many times and also clarify some things for people who are new to who I am and what I speak about. So I usually start off by introducing myself. My name is Aurora, and I usually describe myself as a galactic walk-in. So in recent months, I've found out that some people have a negative connotation to the term walk-in. So let me be totally accurate in my description and my depiction of who I am as a person. So the original occupant of this physical body lived here for 27 years and grew an ego that was a totally different person with a totally different name than I have right now. And at age 27, she was killed in what I describe as a satanic sacrifice. And satanic, I define as utilizing the technology of a particular malevolent space race. So I'm not a biblical literalist when I speak about Satan or Satanism. I'm talking about a form of dark magic. So this was a directed energy weapon and a psychic attack that was also a biological attack that caused an anoxic brain injury and caused the previous occupant of this body to die. So there was a literal metabolic death of the body and also a literal death and unmaking of the ego. So I am not the same ego as the person that was in here for the first 27 years. And I myself, Aurora, I am the result of a combination of consciousness that comes from the stellar network and being invested into this human, organic, multicellular, biological body. So the way that I did that, and the only reason I bring this up is because of the methodology that I came into this body, was by a genetic oscillation, making a new dance movement of the genetic material of this body. And the name for this is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So you can also tell that I am a newcomer to this world and a cultural outsider just based on the name of this strange shape. Because I've also learned in the past couple of months that for many people, it's such a strange name that they have difficulty in accepting it or looking further into the shape that it describes just because it sounds so odd or ridiculous. And it was not my intention to come up with the strangest or most bizarre sounding name for this shape. It was what I perceived it to be in the moment that I created it. So the circumstances for me creating this, it was clearly a situation under great duress. And I don't speak that much about it. It was the experience of walking into this body was not a pleasant, wonderful birth. I've met other walk-ins or people who describe themselves as walk-ins, and some of them had lovely, very amenable births, kind of like with some people have a physical birth. It might be in a nice jacuzzi with some aromatherapy going, and, nice things are happening in the whole room. And some people have a birth where it's very chaotic, and maybe it's in the taxi on the way to the hospital in the Lincoln Tunnel, and there's no peace and it's very chaotic. That is what my experience of walking into this body was like, because there was literally a battle that was going on of the death of the previous occupant that was part of a larger cosmic battle on a very grand scale. And when I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, this is I speaking as Aurora, or as this stellar consciousness, everything paused for a moment, and I was given the opportunity to name the shape that I had just invented or created. And I said, it looks like a flying rainbow, and then lasagna, because the edge is curly like a curly lasagna noodle. So I was very authentic and spontaneous when I created that name for this, and I did not understand that it would be perceived as some kind of stumbling block to people accessing my ideas or information. So again, speaks to the veracity of my story of not really being from here and not really understanding the language and the cultural shorthand of this time and place. So yes, Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the name of a new shape. Just like somebody at one point invented the triangle, somebody at one point invented the square or the dodecahedron, I invented the shape called the flying rainbow lasagna. And it is a form of higher dimensional torus, and torus, T-O-R-U-S, is like a donut shape. So the human energy field and Earth's magnetosphere and the sun's heliosphere, and even on a galactic scale, the size, the shape of the Milky Way and black holes, these are all toroidal or donut-shaped energy fields. And that is like one of the foundation basic building blocks of this language. And so, okay, wait, brief pause while I say my work. Okay, so I teach a whole class all about this. This is an interdimensional language of vibration that I did not invent, but which I perceive and which I have learned myself. So just like in kindergarten, you start to learn your 1, 2, 3s and ABCs. You learn that there are, or one learns that there are letters, and that letters form words, and that words rather fit together to form sentences, and sentences form paragraphs. Well, I went through that similar journey in learning the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. So I've been calling it that, what a mouthful, right, for very many years, because I understood that there's a word or vocabulary word around here right now called sacred geometry. However, that's a very limiting term because the word geometry literally comes from geo meaning earth and metric meaning measure. And these tools of geometry were developed in ancient Egypt so that farmland could be reapportioned after the yearly flooding of the Nile. The yearly floods would wipe out all of the carefully drawn borders, and then the farmers had to make sure to redraw their area borders equally, fairly, so that everyone could get their proper share of what was grown in the agricultural world. So this is very, very basic stuff. It's literally measuring the farmlands of Earth. And what I draw in my diagrams, my drawings, and my sculptures and my animations, what I'm depicting is really the structure of time, the structure of consciousness or awareness as it is flowing on a higher dimensional level. And so this is something beyond merely measuring the earth. It's beyond merely measuring the physical world. So we can use some of these tools of geometry in order to measure and explain and describe the physical world, such as our cellular bodies. If you were to look at and examine your cellular body, you would find a lot of beautiful geometry in there, just like there's beautiful geometry at the center of a sunflower or in the shell of a nautilus. However, we are also comprised of a non-physical aspect of self that is purely energetic or purely based in consciousness or purely based in time, which is what the higher dimensions are made out of and which is what we are flowing through as experiencers of consciousness. And our time body, our energy body, is not structured according to the same grid or matrix or basic foundation arrangement as our physical cellular structure. That's why geometry, measuring earth and measuring cells of your physical body, is not an exact equal. It's not an overlay. It's not a direct translation into understanding the world of time and non-physics. Like if we're understanding physics, these are the laws that govern the observable world with our 5 senses, then there are the rules of non-physics. That is the set of rules or characteristics that determine the patterns of energy as it flows on a non-physical level, and that means through time or pure energy. So I'm just establishing like basic truths here. And for anyone who has been here and accessed my work for many, many years, thank you for being such a returning long-term lasagna lover. Thank you so much. And allow me to just keep going with this because I think it's really important to clarify, especially for someone who might be finding this as their first broadcast or their first introduction to who I am and what I do. So I like to call myself a galactic walk-in. That means my consciousness comes from the scale of the stellar network. It does not mean that I come from a particular star. When I first got here and I would tell people about my origins, and they would often jokingly say, "What planet are you from?" And I understand that's lighthearted and I appreciate that. However, I'm not from a location that you can point to in the night sky. Not a planet and not a particular star. And not even a star that is a brand name star like Sirius or Aldebaran or the Pleiades. I come from a stellar network because the stars are all little point, or seemingly little from our perspective, far distant points of consciousness, and all of those consciousnesses are tied together in a network just like our computers, our individual personal home computers, are tied together on a network that we call the internet. So this larger network is like a brain or a neurology of a being that exists on a vast scale. And that is what I am a part of. So I like to say to people, I come from a collective, a consciousness collective, although I have had to learn in recent years that many people associate that word with a hive mind. And even though, I don't have a negative association with the hive, I think that bees and ants, ant colonies, that world is very beautiful, and that it's not exploitive, and that it's not about despotism, like one leader at the top of a pyramid-shaped hierarchy that condescends down to everyone else and tells them all what to do. I really perceive the hive mind of the bee and the insect world to be different. However, I understand that there's a cultural context here right now. So I've come here really as a cultural outsider and have tried to present this information that I perceive as empirical truth, like the information that I share about chakras or energy centers on the body, or their color, or their shape, or their proportion, or this interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. Oh, and by the way, tone is a musical tone, not just a tone of color. But I have had to understand and learn, or learn and understand, that what I'm presenting, which is neutral information, is being perceived through the anthropomorphic cultural filter of people of this time and place. It's literally as if people are wearing a lens, or like a set of goggles in front of their eyes, that influences how they perceive what I'm sending out. So that it's just like being a musician, and you're like, I'm hitting this note. How is the audience perceiving that note that I am hitting? So I had to learn, if I were to describe my consciousness collective, some people are looking through the cultural goggles of fascism. And this is a big problem on this planet right now, that there are many political systems that are based in suppressing other people's freedoms, and that there is a hugely negative perception of overarching systems that reduce personal individual freedom. And that's also part of why I'm here as a flying rainbow lasagna, to teach other people tools for freedom so that they can be free. So I am infinitely aware and sensitive of the cultural context within which I am speaking. So no, I do not portray my collective as a hive mind, like join the Borg or any kind of thing like that. And people that are familiar with my work and that know me are probably laughing, because I'm just about as opposite of that as you possibly could be. I am not like imagine a band leader or person in a symphony who's saying, you must play only these notes and you must follow the musical score that I'm telling you. No, I'm really more of a jazz musician, and I'm looking for other good jazz musicians to jam with. And I like to joke that my consciousness collective is like the advanced jazz band, like in high school or in college, that it's not something that you just fall into easily. One has to audition. And in order to audition, that means that you have to have an instrument, have your instrument in tune, know how to play your instrument, and have basic skills of musical literacy so that you can integrate with other musicians. You got to know what the chords are, so that if someone says, hey, we're going to start this song in the key of C, that you know what that means. So in this sense, in the allegory that I'm using, the jazz band is a collaboration, artistic collaboration of consciousness, because each one of our bodies, we are made of these vibrating strings of DNA, and our vibrating strings of DNA make music. And when we have organized sound waves, we call it music. And when we organize the emissions of our non-physical body, our consciousness, time, energy body, it becomes coherent. Just like these sound waves sound pretty together. Oh, they sound so pretty. They're nested in perfect harmonic proportions. That means if we were to draw this or look at this on an oscilloscope, the little circles would fit together perfectly. Even if one was twice as big as the other, the fact that it's twice as big means there's no extra hanging out the side. It's not like it's 2.5 times as big. That's why these sound pretty to us. Now I'll make an ugly noise. It sounds ugly because those sound waves are not organized coherently. So this is also not a control system. I am just trying to tell everyone in every possible way that I can that I promote freedom, so my consciousness collective one of the big things about it is that we are based in, or I am based in, unconditional love. That is a literal tone. Like that's an A note. This is an unconditional love tone, la, that you make when you go through time at the right rate. So when you are not clinging to the past or grasping at the future, you are in partnership, creative, beautiful, harmonic partnership with the cosmos, flowing through time at exactly the right rate. And when you do that, when one does that, the body, your non-physical body, literally emits a tone. And it might not be perceivable to your physical ears. It doesn't vibrate the little tiny cochlea hairs inside of your ears. However, it is perceptible. And it is what we do when we practice meditation or mindfulness, or when you're an athlete in the zone. Like if you're a really good runner and you're like hitting mile 5 and you're just in your groove and you're not huffing and puffing, you're just totally at your pace and doing very well, and your mind is blissful. Or when I am playing a song on the piano that is something that I'm familiar with and that I already know how to play. I'm not struggling. I'm not reaching. Like, it's good to challenge yourself too, but sometimes I just like to play a song that I've known for years, and that's just so much fun to play. I'm in bliss. I do not have to think, move my pinky, move my index finger, move here, do this, C sharp. I don't have to think at all. All I have to do is be immersed in the experience. And I tell everyone that this is our true mind, because what is known as our human mind, quote unquote, our daily conscious waking intellect, is actually a hacked operating system. It is installed in humanity, which is why we might call it the human mind. However, it does not originate with humanity, and it has not been installed for your personal convenience. Just like Windows 10 is not installed on your home computer for your personal convenience. It is actually installed for the convenience of the Microsoft company, the beings that created that software, the ones that would like to be able to send you advertisements, target all of their advertisements according to reading your emails and accessing other personal information, and even invading your privacy in ways that you would not agree to otherwise, but which you have to as part of the contract of having that software on your computer. So the human mind similarly makes consciousness vulnerable to invaders. That when we are using our true mind, when I'm playing my music or doing my artwork and I don't have to think, pick up the paintbrush, dip it in red paint, put red paint here. I don't have to use any of that clunky verbalized language. When I'm able to do that, then I recognize that my mind is less accessible, less hackable to these invaders of consciousness. I jokingly refer to them as the peanut gallery because they stand on the sidelines. They're not actual participants in the band. They've always got opinions. They've always got negative criticism. They've always got something to say about how bad or how wrong or how lame you are. Or even if you're doing good now, you're just about to make a mistake. These are like the little saboteurs that would like to reduce your happiness, reduce your joy. They siphon off joy and love and happiness because they don't have a mouth with which to eat love. So I know I just finished characterizing to you my own consciousness collective, this stellar network, as being based in unconditional love. That means that is the food or the fuel that makes our car go. It's like the gas that makes our vehicle go. And the vehicle is a consciousness vehicle, a living vessel, like a living ship, not a clank metal spaceship. It's something that is akin to a biological, organic, multicellular organism, but on a much larger scale and with like different parts, different puzzle pieces, but that is analogous. So you're a body, you're an individual body, you're comprised of many cells, and you're moving through time. And this is also what the stellar network is like, but just on a much larger scale. So we do not have to use technology. That's what I'm trying to get across, not to give you more of a sense of duality, like thing versus thing, but instead to just make a general categorization that there are non-terrestrial consciousnesses who use technology as their compensatory mode because they are not expert. They have not gone through the levels of self-cultivation that one is supposed to go through before one begins to spread oneself across the galaxy or across the cosmos throughout time. That there are certain energetic firewalls. There's a great wisdom to the great composer. Great composer said, hey, let's make certain that before you get off the surface of your planet, that you are actually prepared to go to another place and not just be an insensitive tourist. I wanted to say an ugly American, but I don't want to be so insulting to Americans. But there used to be this idea that Americans, when they traveled abroad, were brash and loud and wore T-shirts with the American flag on it, and were not sensitive to the cultures that they went into, and portrayed this country as not socially sensitive or positive in any way. So that's kind of the idea. Or how about the conquistadors that came from Spain and Europe and went to Central and South America and pretty much destroyed cultures intentionally and were not welcome guests, but were more like invaders. So on the one hand, we have the example of just cultural insensitivity. On the other hand, we have the mindset of the barbarian value system that says only the strong survive, and I'm allowed to move in and take over because, hey, I've got more muscle power, or I've got better technology, or I've got better ideas. And I don't ascribe to any of those approaches. Those approaches are very limiting, and luckily that is not the way that the cosmos at large is structured. Because if it were, like, this is a symphony. When I talk about the symphony, I'm really talking about a symphony of life. And over here, I'll play this is the highest note. I hope the microphone is good enough to pick it up. Yeah, I think you can hear that. These are like the most delicate consciousnesses and the most delicate organisms that could be blown away by a breath. You know, they could be harmed very, very easily. And now I'll play these ones over here. Wow, those are like the strongest consciousnesses. They're like made of iron or titanium or diamond. They can't be harmed or, smushed in any way. And guess what? There's all of the notes in between. There are an entire array of different types of organisms in the cosmos. And it's not fair to say that only these guys get to survive because they're the biggest ones or they're the strongest ones, because these guys over here are also incredibly valuable. So, I mean, just as a little anecdote of me being in this body. So I'm a newcomer to having a body. And at first, when I got into this human body, I didn't understand and respect how important microbes were in order, like the littlest, humblest one-celled organisms. I didn't even know how important they were to our health and vitality. And it wasn't until maybe 4 years ago, I started to have my own garden, and I had to learn all about beneficial microbes, that if you want to grow an organic garden and not spray it with a bunch of chemicals and pesticides, and you also want your plants not to be infested with mites and get powdery mildew and have all sorts of fungus, that what you need to do is an integrated pest management system that basically involves spraying your plants every day with beneficial microbes. And then I started to learn about the microbes that are in our microbiome, in our intestines, and that made me more connected to Earth and to the planet and to this body, because my journey has been a journey of learning about this body. And by learning about my individual body and being here and how to take care of it and how to keep it healthy, that I could also use that as a template for understanding Earth. That Earth is a body. Just like we have organs, Earth has organs. And just like we have the necessity of microbial health, that Earth also has the necessity of microbial health. So I started to learn about how microbes are necessary for us to unlock the nutrients within our own digestive tract, and also for plants to unlock the nutrients that are at the micronutrient mineral level. It's almost the atomic level. It's the level of like little tiny molecules, that are almost one atom, that in order to get the nutrients at that level, that it's necessary for microbes to help plants do their digestion. And when I understood that, I really began to understand the complexity of the system that I am embedded within as a biological life form, and to respect it. To say, hey, you know something? This is actually not a simple, stupid song that's just made up of two notes. This is actually a way more complex song that's got all sorts of interesting things going on. This going on over here, this going on over here, but I've also got this going on over here, and I've got this going on over here, and even down here, I've got this going on over here. I started to understand the interconnectedness of consciousness and the interconnectedness of life just on a biological and cellular level. And so this awakening, this level of sensitivity and understanding is necessary for us to be able to harmonically integrate well with the life that is on the same planet as us, and then be prepared for jamming with other musicians elsewhere. It's just, this is like the growth pattern that we need to go through. First, we get it together just on the planetary sense. And well, first to get it together just on an individual sense. like as a musician. First, you just learn to play your own instrument. And again, to reiterate, your body is your instrument. So first, what it is necessary for each one of us to do is to learn to tune our own body, to bring it into a state of health and vitality. Oh, pardon me. Health and vitality of the physical body, but and also to bring the ego and the structure of the narrative story of who you are into a positive structure. Because a lot of the harm and insensitivity, the ugly Americanism that a lot of humans are portraying right now, has to do with anthropocentrism. This is like the egocentrism of the species. Humans who believe that they are, as an individual, more important than other individuals, or as a species or a race, more important than other species or races. Because like I was saying, I had to understand and become sensitive to the microbiome. I had to understand the micromineral realm, and that all of this, I'm also understanding other plants and animals, and I'm also understanding the planetary structure herself. And then we can even dilate our identity larger and identify with the entire solar system as being the outgrowth or creative representation of the thoughts and dreams and desires of this particular star that we are circulating around, or that we are living in conjunction with. That our star, Sol, at the center of our solar system, is a dreamer and a thinker that is emanating not mere photons, but that photons are feelers, photons are packets of consciousness, that those photons, I'm all about sun gazing. Okay, so the fuel that makes my consciousness collective go, this is unconditional love, and we are love eaters and do not require technology. And so when I first got here, I thought, all I need to do is eat the sunlight that's here. And I didn't understand at first that I was in a domesticated human body, and that in this format we also need to eat plants and animals as intermediaries to the sun. However, our original format of our bodies, what was intended for us by the great composer that made this beautiful symphony of life, we were intended to be able to tap directly into the sun and the stellar network. It's a total aberration, an aberrant situation, a non-intentional situation that has arisen where humans come into the physical body, like gestate as a fetus, their consciousness comes into the physical world through birth, and from that moment onward, that consciousness is reduced in its connection to, we could call it the sun, the stellar network, and also divine or higher consciousness, or higher intelligence, or consciousness that is coming to us from a less dense realm, that is more organized, and that is moving at a faster rate. Because right now we're in this octave of humanity, like let's say from this C note to this C note, and that's what we say, everything within those little parentheses, that's what we define as human. However, there is another octave up from there. And there's even another octave up from there. It keeps on going and going and going. So we are just living in this little slice of what we define as humanity, but that is a mere fraction, a fragment, a sliver of the overall spectrum of consciousness. So, okay, unconditional love is what I eat, but I've had to learn when I got here, I had to learn through trial and error, can't eat just pure sunlight in the domesticated body, have to also supplement with food like plants and animals that are intermediaries. That plants are chloroplasts, they contain chlorophyll, they are able to catch photons and physically transform the light into literally transform the light into a physical substance that, like a starch or a sugar or a piece of fiber or cellulose, that then we can eat and consume and put into our bodies. So we are in partnership with everything else that's here. We're in partnership with the life that's here. This is all preparation for basically being able to become expert star travelers, that when you get it together enough on a personal individual level, on a social cultural planetary scale, that then it is appropriate to jump off the surface of your planet and begin to interact with consciousness that is non-local, that is elsewhere and elsewhen. And so part of this is all about flying rainbow lasagna, that this is a tool for restructuring and refining your own body and your own instrument, and also folding the fabric of space, time, and consciousness so that you can have a real-time conversation with someone that is elsewhere or elsewhen. Because If it were only about line of sight communications or sending out a radar transmission or sending out a sound wave, anything like, if it is a linear wave that has to travel across the vast interstellar reaches of space, then it's going to take a very long time. By the time you send out your message in a bottle and it reaches the other person's shore, you have died. And by the time they read it and respond and their message, they send it out, message in a bottle, goes across the ocean, reaches your shore, then it's like been at whatever, could be 20,000 generations, and they have no idea why this message is reaching them now. So in order to have effective real-time conversations with these other forms of consciousness, it is necessary to learn how to fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. So this is also part of gaining the necessary abilities to navigate the world effectively. And it's just like if I had a young person and I wanted to teach them to drive, I would make sure they get their learner's permit, they've got their car is nice and good and safe and filled with gas, and then I'm also going to teach them, hey, how do you read a map? How do you read street signs? How can you tell where you're supposed to go? These are important things. I would not just say to a person, here's the car keys, car's full of gas, drive to Times Square, drive to the worst neighborhood in town, drive to wherever you want to, because that is very irresponsible and would, endanger a person quite a lot. So in learning about interdimensional travel or travel of consciousness or connecting with other beings in consciousness, it is necessary for all of us to get together the basic life skills so that we can all read a map and read street signs and know where we are going, and also have a basic sense of street smarts, in that not everybody is your friend to be trusted right off the bat, that it's necessary to have energetic firewalls of protection and to encrypt your own DNA, just like you might want to lock your car if you park in a bad neighborhood, or even if you park in your driveway. That these are important life skills. These are like the sensible way of approaching life. Okay, so another aspect of my collective of consciousness is the promotion or desire to create freedom and encourage freedom, because freedom is a totality. It is not something where you can have 99% freedom in the cosmos and one little sliver of 1% slavery and still say that there is freedom. That is simply not accurate. So on this higher dimensional level, or this level of the stellar network, I perceived that there was a great injustice and a lack of freedom that was going on here. And there's also certain ethical constraints. Like if someone is personally attacking you, it is absolutely appropriate for you to act or to defend yourself. However, if something is not directly affecting you, then it's less clear whether it is appropriate for one to act and to step in and to intervene. Because again, this is about the symphony of life and how organisms are all connected, and everybody does deserve freedom. And the freedom does not mean the capacity to oppress others. Like, this is what I'm trying to say. There are some space races that really do believe in freedom, but only their own freedom. They only believe, these are like, if humanity is like first graders playing on the playground of grade school, then there are like maybe second or third graders out there that literally think that it is freedom for them to bully and deride and give noogies to the first graders. And it's totally not acceptable. Nothing about that is allowed. And this speaks to my personal motivation, like my personal story for coming into this body, because I said I perceived a great injustice and I created the solution, the flying rainbow lasagna. This was not just an impersonal injustice. This was something that was very personally connected to me. And people often ask, why this body? Why this life? It's not like I shopped around. It's not like I said, I'd really like to enter into physical, organic, multicellular human bodies. Let's see where's a good opportunity. It was not like that at all. It was a very spontaneous decision in the moment. And like the best description that I can give is that I, as a consciousness on an abstract level, on a galactic level, had a personal connection to the person that was here, that was in this body, in the conception and creation of this body that lived for 27 years with a different person as the driver of the car, that it wasn't just some random stranger's body or something like that, that I was connected to her. However, I'm coming from a different direction and moving at a very different rate. And it was very, very unfair that the person that used to be in this body and that this body was being killed. And so this is an aspect of black magic, dark magic rather, is an aspect of dark magic that consciousness is hijacked and the natural flow of time is distorted. And one of the ways that that is done is through sexual abuse, where a person's life trajectory is changed. If you could imagine a baseball flying through the sky, and if it were not acted upon by any outside force, it would simply go on its arc. But let's say something else comes along and siphons energy off of it, and that makes that baseball not hit the target, not go directly over the home plate where it was going to go. Instead, it veers off on a crazy tangent. That is the action of what sexual abuse does to people, to humans, and this is part of this technology that is used. So Arthur Clarke has said, this is a science fiction writer, he has said any sufficiently advanced technology would appear to be magic if you didn't know how it actually functioned. This is paraphrasing, but he's pretty famous for saying that. What people look at as dark magic, evil magicians that are able to somehow hijack other people's willpower or get their way, or that is what is being used here. So basically, certain people's life trajectories are drawn off course and their life force energy is siphoned off, and then they often end up, if they're left alive, feeling self-esteem issues, feeling a great deal of doubt and insecurity, like a person who might have been a great leader or an orator or someone who had something to share in the world, instead becomes a diminished shadow, a mere fraction of who they could have been. Maybe they exhibit self-destructive tendencies like drug abuse or other risky behavior or other things that are just ways of them displaying that they don't like their life or they don't like what has happened to them. So that is one level of siphoning off energy. And then the next level is outright murder. That if you it's like cutting a time thread. If you have a time thread that was supposed to exist for, let's say, 60 or 75 years in the physical realm, and you cut that thread at whatever, age 25, then that's many decades of potential life energy that gets to be siphoned off and applied in a different and distorted level of the time field. So this is basically what was going on with the person that used to be in this body. That at age 27, their time thread, their life, their trajectory was being artificially severed. This is murder. This is what murder is. And the idea was to siphon off all of that energy and misapply it, to apply it to something else or someone else. And this is a part of how the fabric of time, space, and consciousness is being distorted and misapplied. And what I did as this consciousness that is usually an abstraction at a galactic level, and when I say abstraction, I mean, it's so funny on my website, if people might have read something out of context, it's like sometimes I describe myself, I'm an abstraction, I'm neither male nor female, I'm not a transgender, like that's not where I'm going with all of this. It's like saying when I'm not in this human female body, that's right, I'm an abstraction. I look like a pattern, like a collection of color, line, shape, and form and tone. I don't necessarily look like a person with a face and two arms and two legs. So it has been quite a journey and quite an adventure to be here in this body and to learn about not only what my body needs to eat and how I can connect to the plant and animal and microbiome and be connected to this planet, but also learning how others see through their social goggles and how they perceive me through their anthropomorphic filter and how they look at me wearing this human body. I've learned so much about gender roles and sexism and the way that people treat women and the way that people have expectations of what a female is. I've learned a lot about that. However, when I'm not in this body, when I'm not at this gig, I'm shaped very differently. I have a very different format. And you would probably recognize me because you would recognize my energetic signature. You would recognize the feeling that is inside of my voice, the feeling that is in my artwork, the feeling that is in all of these expressions that I send out. That feeling gets translated into this particular persona, and this persona is named Aurora. So Aurora is a real person. I'm not in any way a fake person. And this is a pretty important distinction to make. I'm not like a synthetic replicant or any kind of clone or anything like that. However, I was structured in adulthood, and most people's ego structure happens and arises very naturally and like without intention as just a part of growing up in infancy and early childhood. That is when most people develop the sense of this is your name, this is your identity where you live, this is your favorite sweater, this is your favorite color, this is your favorite food, and this is who you are parents what you want to be when you grow up. And for me, that establishment of identity happened in chronological adulthood. However, I went through those same stages of development that an ordinary human goes through in learning what my name is, learning what my favorite colors are, learning what type of clothing I like to wear, and creating a persona that is an effective interface between myself as raw consciousness, just unformed, abstract consciousness, and this social milieu within which I find myself submerged. Because, I came here with a real clear purpose, a very clear mission. And the mission is to share the concept of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna with anybody, with everybody, with anybody who is interested in it and open to it and wants it. Because when I created this new dance movement, it is a genetic oscillation. It is a genetic portal. And it's something that allows humanity, or people that were in these domesticated bodies that were formerly limited and constrained, to transcend those limitations and constraints. And this is also how I can say I can characterize myself as working for freedom, because what I did with this body, Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the genes of this body, put my stellar consciousness into this format, and it took many months/years to really integrate into this body. However, once I did that, that opportunity is open to other people. It's like saying the first guy that ever ran a marathon, it was very hard for him to do, and he dropped dead immediately. That's literally what happened. The guy in Greece ran a marathon, and then he dropped dead. But now people run marathons all the time. It is very normal. They don't drop dead afterwards. People go through training programs, and they've learned how to do it together with their running clubs, and they don't drop dead. So although I'm the first Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I don't pretend to be the only one that will ever be in existence. And all of what my intention is to express this truth through artwork and through sculptures and through animations and other through my voice, through music, through different creative expressions, and make the concept available to other people. Because I understood in the moment of creating the Flying Rainbow Lasagna that even if I didn't come here, even if I didn't go into a physical body and pick up a drawing piece of paper and colored pencils and try to draw it or try to make a sculpture, that the idea is out there, and that eventually someone would figure it out, someone would make a sculpture, it would percolate through human society. But I really felt, something, I want to firsthand, personally, quote unquote, make lasagna for everyone and tell everyone about it and give it and explain it to people and articulate it in a good way. And again, this is not me trying to keep it as a special secret only for me. If I did, I would not make sculptures and videos and have a website. I would keep it locked up in a bank in a safe deposit box and not let anyone know about it. So I think that also speaks to who I am, the characteristics of who I am, that far from being some kind of an interdimensional carpetbagger, like, oh, I'm going to swoop on in, to these vulnerable people on planet Earth and scoop them up in some way. Oh, no, far from that. I'm noticing, hey, there's a lot of iniquity, there's a lot of injustice that is happening here. And this concept, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, this is a tool for freedom that can greatly improve the quality of existence of people on this planet. And I want to share it with people as much as I possibly can. Not merely for purposes of self-aggrandizement, no, even though I would like to get credit as the originator. And I feel like that's totally appropriate. Like if you are the first person that ever created this song, then you should say, hey, I wrote that song. And everyone should say, yes, you wrote that song, but now I like it so much I'm going to cover it. I'm going to take that basic melodic format and I'm going to apply my voice to it. And I'm going to use it with my instrument. And maybe I'll play it on the violin or on the harp or on the theremin. I will play it on my unique instrument and put my own personality into it. And that is what I encourage everyone to do with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I like to say the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, it's a genetic tool, it's an oscillation, it is a way that you can rearrange your DNA. It's like a paintbrush for your reality. And as an art teacher, I would simply say to you, this is what a paintbrush is, and this is what bristles are, and this is what paint is. You put the paint on the bristles and then it goes on the canvas. But I'm not going to tell you what to paint. I'm not going to tell you what style to paint in, what colors to use. So I'm saying I'm not going to tell other humans or humanity in general who you should become. if you want, I'm giving you the tool for rearrangement. However, I'm not going to tell you instructions and tell you what you should rearrange yourself into. That would not be loving. That would not be cultivating freedom for everyone that is here. So I am really intending to give humanity a tool for freedom and a tool for consciousness advancement and genetic refinement, and not to be a controller, an owner, an operator in any way. If I wanted to be that, what I would have done, like I'm maniacally wringing my hands together right now, like I'm some kind of a, horrible plutocrat, and I would have said, oh yes, this is a very valuable idea. I'll be sure to patent it, and I will only allow people to use this concept if they pay me a service fee, or if they pay me $1 billion. Yes, if they pay me $1 billion, then I'll tell them about the flying rainbow lasagna and allow them to do that dance. And I'm clearly not doing that. What I do instead is I have an online class where I describe all of this. And this, like people, I go through this a lot. People say, why should I take this class? And the real answer is because learning how to dance with your own DNA like a flying rainbow lasagna, it's an extensive learning process. It's just like learning to play the piano. That's not something that you do in just a weekend. That it's something that takes time, because you need to learn about music theory. You need to tune your instrument. You need to learn about music theory. You need to learn about what inspires you, like what original music you would like to create, and then have time to practice and have time to get it together. So I'm also trying to describe this flying rainbow lasagna concept as a cosmic dance party, that this is a dance maneuver. Your DNA is constantly dancing. So this is, for anyone who's new, it's repetitive for anyone who's tuned in many times. I talk about this often, that our DNA is constantly dancing, and that our DNA is the literal integument that ties us together from one moment to the next moment, that we transfer our consciousness from body to body, jumping from the body of 152 to the body of 153, and then in another minute to the body of 154. And it's this genetic dance, this tumbling, morphing, twisting, jumping dance, that is what makes that happen. So the flying rainbow lasagna is a new dance movement that one can perform with one's DNA and transform the trajectory, the way that one moves through time. So I use this analogy all the time too. This is repetition for people that have been tuning in for a long time, but it's a good analogy. A little ant walking across a flat leaf, that mostly humanity up until this point has been like a little ant that is stuck on the surface of a two-dimensional flat leaf. And that the little ant cannot simply, go directly from the stem to the edge of the leaf. And that's more like what a butterfly could do, that a butterfly doesn't have to crawl all the way up the stem and crawl all the way across the surface of the entire leaf. It can just fly around and go directly to its destination. So humanity is like the little ant stuck to the surface of time. That you wake up in the morning and you have your breakfast, then you have to go through lunch, and then you eventually arrive at dinner. And that you cannot simply jump out of your bed in the morning and fly directly to dinner. It's almost unfathomable to most people that are on Earth in this physical format right now. However, that is the level of freedom that we are all learning to attain, or cultivating ourselves towards attaining. That this is the additional degree of freedom that is available to us, or that is achieved when we add an additional dimension. So the difference between a torus or donut shape and a flying rainbow lasagna is adding an additional dimension, just like taking a flat paper and folding it into a origami shape or into a cube or something like that. What you have done is added an additional dimension, and in so doing, you get more freedom. It means you can do more things. You can go in more directions. So the freedom in this case is the freedom of latitude with your mind, with your consciousness through time. And so again, characterizing here, I'm here to give you tools that you can use to be more free. So I'm mildly perturbed. Like, I do watch other things that are on YouTube, and I put my finger on the pulse of humanity and what I see. And I do see a lot of people that have unusual stories, like stories of unusual personal experiences of, spiritual or metaphysical or UFO experiences. However, they do not necessarily have information to share or anything that is a tool to improve life. And my intention with that statement is not merely to be critical or cast aspersions upon other people, like saying, don't eat at their restaurants, only eat at my restaurants and only eat lasagna. It's not to say that. However, I am trying to say, I'm not just some person coming along and saying, I have this story, this is what happened to me, listen, listen, listen. I'm actually saying, listen to me, I have this story, listen to me, because here's this tool that you can apply to your own life. That is what I'm trying to say. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not just for me. It's not just my personal experience. It's not just something that I used to prevent the death of this physical body and to transcend the neurological damage and limitations in this physical body. I mean, that's a big part of it. The damage in this brain was meant to make it so that I could never do math, or I could never be articulate and speak with words the way I currently am, and that I would just be a vegetable in bed. And clearly that's not what I am. So you can understand that some very unusual, I like to say impossible unlikelihood has occurred, and that is I flying rainbow lasagna with my neurology. If there's a dead end, if I can't get down a particular nerve pathway, I jump up and over it. So it took me many years. However, I learned how to do math in a new way, because I had originally, through the brain injury, lost my math skills and was numerically illiterate and could not even do basic addition and subtraction. And that was what the first couple of years of my experience of being here was like. So it took a long time for me to develop my own understanding of math that is based on visuals and visualizing circles coming together. And if you take a moment to look at my artwork, which you can find very easily at flyingrainbowlasagna.com, brief plug for me, and that's lasagna with an E on the end, just go to the art page and check it on out, and you can see it's all made out of circles. And this is my artistic expression that came from me organizing my brain and being able to rehabilitate and understand what numbers are and how math and how addition and subtraction happen and multiplication and all of that, how to restructure my brain. And I also spent many years developing the capacity to be articulate about these ideas that right now, speaking to you on the radio, it's like if you watch a person run a marathon, that's because they have been training their legs for many years. So yeah, I started off just trying to have a little community access broadcast. That was when I was back in Woodstock, New York, my old hometown, and I would do these middle of the night community access broadcasts on the little TV station, Channel 23 over there. And some of these are still floating around on some archive, so they're pretty funny to watch. And that was, I figured, no one's watching, no one's listening. I'm just going to talk about the lasagna as best I can and try to share these ideas with people. And it helped me to not only organize my thoughts, but be able to connect my thoughts to the flapping of my moving mouth parts, which up until that point was a great challenge because I had felt a lot more comfortable speaking with pictures. And eventually I synthesized all of this together into an online class of interactive whiteboards that I recorded. It's on Teachable. It's Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And you can also find that on my website. And what I do is I take pictures and images of my artwork and sculptures, upload it into this whiteboard program, and then it records my voice while I make diagrams and make notations and draw with pictures on top of my pictures. And that was the synthesis of how I figured out how I'm going to share these ideas, which for me are very visual. For me, I understand all of this as shapes and colors and forms and movement and how it all fits together almost like puzzle pieces. So it's been very challenging to describe it to other people with words. So I like to use pictures as much as I can, but I joke, I love my radio show here. However, it is a little bit like trying to fight with one hand tied behind my back. However, I appreciate being able to connect with everyone and share ideas as broadly as I can. Yeah, so I've spent many years trying to become articulate and work out a coherent way of expressing these ideas with other people. And that's also important because this is about like how can musicians jam together, that if everybody decides we're starting off in C, then it's a common starting ground. And so brief to this. People have contacted me, they say, Aurora, what about the removal of chakras? I've heard that the chakra system is just a system for control and energy harvesting and that it's malevolent. What should I do? And some people have even advocated for removing their chakras. So let me say this. I perceive chakras as being organs, like organizational centers of the non-physical body, of the time body. And I do not feel that it is wrong or disempowering to learn about your own organs. This is analogous to learning about your reproductive cycle so that you can have the babies that you want to have, not have the babies that you have accidentally. And in this case, learning about your chakras or energy centers allows you to have the realities that you wish to have, to give birth to the experiences in reality that you wish to have, as opposed to having a bunch of unintended experiences like, car crashes and babies that are born with brain cancer. So what we really want to do is learn how to utilize our creative faculties in order to, like with a paintbrush, paint the reality we wish to experience. And to me, the answer is not to get rid of paint, get rid of paintbrushes, and get rid of canvas and simply not paint. That's what I think it is analogous to if you get rid of all your chakras. I don't think that leads to freedom at all. So it's necessary to transcend the limitations. I mentioned that I found myself here in this domesticated body of this human format. Our bodies were genetically manipulated between 10 and 20,000 years ago so that we are no longer light eaters that don't have to use the intermediary of plants and animals, that now we have to eat other things, grind them up with our mouth parts, and ferment them in the cauldron of our bellies in order to nourish our bodies. In order for us to be alive, something has to die. And that only started about 10 or 20,000 years ago. That was not the original intended format of our bodies. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the tool with which we can rearrange our DNA and not only return to, backtrack, go back to what we once were. We can build upon that because clearly there were vulnerabilities to that format. If we became degraded and became what we are right now, it's not like that was a perfect or invulnerable system. So we can return to and transcend the limitations of who and what we were in our original format. And that's the whole plan. That's the whole idea. That is why I am here as this person, Aurora. It is my motivation. It is my intention or my own personal agenda. And agenda is not a negative thing. It means my motivation. Like when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I want to paint a painting so that I can tell everybody all about what these inner structures are that I see. Or I want to make wearable lasagna earrings that people can wear in order to learn what this shape is like. I'm always, every day, saying, how can I share these ideas with other people? Today it is, how can I organize my thoughts and speak about them with my flapping, moving mouth parts on the radio and send these ideas out to everyone so they can, it is literal ingestion. I thank people for coming and ingesting the lasagna because this is consensual. It's not something that I am forcing on anyone else or imposing upon you. It's a cosmic dance party. You're invited to the dance party and you got to learn the dance steps and you got to be healthy and fit enough to do the dance. And I look forward to continuing dancing with everyone. Thank you so much.
You're listening to UCY.TV. Why don't you stick around for more awesome radio?